Welcome back from the break. Now we'll be speaking to a highly accomplished mountaineer who's reached a number of notable summits. No easy task, but we're going to talk about this with her in the studio. Vanessa O'Brien, we're delighted to have you on.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Vanessa, we understand there was a slight situation when you were trekking, I believe, up north. Could you explain the situation to us?
Yeah, sure. There seems to be some confusion, but what I was trying to articulate was that I was complimenting the Fearless Five because of the work that they do, primarily in the Karakoram, in providing rescue services. And this is very important because when a mountaineer or a trekker becomes in any sort of danger, they provide the rescue services. However, I myself was not rescued. I had the benefit of taking a helicopter flight back to Skardu to save the 6-7 days it would take to trek out so that I could come to Islamabad a little bit faster to do some public service work.
Right.
That's it.
Okay, well, glad we cleared that up. Glad we cleared that up now. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your experiences. As I mentioned, you climbed a number of notable summits. You're a record breaker, which is quite an achievement. So just tell us, how did you get into mountaineering? Because I understand before that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were in finance.
Yes, absolutely. I was in finance. I was in banking in both London, England, and in Hong Kong.
Morgan Stanley, I understand.
Yeah, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, several Fortune 50 type companies. So really it was recession-oriented that moved me into a direction from climbing a corporate ladder to taking on something a little bit different. I was looking for something that was that would take 2 to 3 years to do, that was goal-oriented, something I could measure success by. And it was roughly around that time that somebody said to me, how about climbing Everest? And at the time I thought, well, this is so outrageous, right? Because I had no climbing experience. But then I thought about it and I thought, you know, the only thing I don't know how to do is climb. And I could go learn that. And that's what I did. I went down to New Zealand, which is closer to Hong Kong, and I went and learned how to climb, how to do alpine mountaineering.
I didn't know bankers had so much adventure in them.
Well, you know, you'd be surprised, I think, you know. But there is a lot of business skills that you use on a mountain.
Right.
Risk management, for example, you know, there's a lot of leadership, teamwork. You know, logistics planning, all sorts of things that, you know, kind of work on a day-to-day basis that go into climbing a mountain. When I speak to corporations, those are the kind of things I try to relate. Of course, it's very, very different in the moment when you're faced with something daunting in an environment that's minus 40 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit and 45-mile-an-hour winds.
Absolutely. Before I ask you about the type of preparation you have to go through before a big climb, just tell us a little bit about your experiences in Pakistan. What's that been like?
Yeah, Pakistan has been wonderful. I arrived in Islamabad. Islamabad is very, very green, lush. My first stop, I think I tweeted, was probably Khadi to pick up some amazing garments because I find the shalwar kameez to be very feminine and
very comfortable.
Comfortable, and I love the fabric, and I just think it looks lovely. So for me, I wanted a few of these outfits. And, but there wasn't much time in the beginning, so quickly I was on the Karakoram Highway, both directions to Skardu. The trek-in, of course, you know, if it's an 8,000-meter peak, it's around 6 weeks that it takes to climb a mountain. How
close have you gotten to K2? Tell us how far you've actually gone.
Sure. Well, K2 conditions this year were very poor. So what that means is that the snow conditions, it was very warm. So the snow was not, it was not forming and sticking on the mountain in the lower parts. So there was lots of avalanches, lots of rockfall.
I would imagine that has a lot to do with climate change.
It could very well be related, absolutely. This was a very strange season, according to the mountaineers who have been here before and the high altitude porters. I went to Camp 2 and about halfway to Camp 3, right before something called the Black Pyramid, which is a very famous piece of rock that a climber would climb through.
Now, tell us about the type of preparation that you have to go through, your diet, and of course your fitness regime before a big climb.
Sure. You know, I think people should train for a mountain. Ironically, it's not, you're not training for muscle because in a high altitude mountain, like an 8,000 meter peak, the oxygen becomes a limited resource. So when oxygen is a limited resource, the brain and the lungs have to have that. Muscle will compete with that. So I have found a success formula more akin to like a marathon type training. So you want a really, really strong cardiovascular system.
Right.
So like running, stairs, anything that gets your cardiovascular system up. For me, living in a city, I don't have access to the mountains, so I found office buildings very good because that's a staircase.
Yeah, but how do you deal with high altitude pressure? That's something one would obviously have to deal with because that can be extremely difficult.
Yep. Well, one is that it happens naturally, and you do this by climbing slow. Everyone should do this, by the way, not just a climber, but anytime you approach anything that's, you know, 3,000 meters, you know, you want to climb roughly 300 meters a day, 1,000 feet. That's a good rule of thumb. Climb high, sleep low, climb high, sleep low. You do this repetitively. And as you're doing that, the red blood cells are naturally increasing in your body.
Right.
And that's the oxygen-rich cells.
So there's a lot of preparation, and one we need to know a lot. And if someone wants to take this up as maybe a career or a hobby, there's a lot that one needs to do in order to get ready for something like this. Yeah,
I mean, most of it is, to keep it simple, is you want good cardiovascular strength. If you're going to burn and train more, you're probably going to need more calories. Calories predominantly come from carbohydrates and protein. And on top of that, you're going to want to simulate what you're going to do. So if you're going to be climbing, I like stairs because you're climbing stairs.
Yeah.
I like running because
the Stairmaster in the gym, I assume.
You know, Stairmaster is a little bit artificial. I think actual stairs, because you have to lift your body weight and you have to come down. So I like the good old-fashioned staircase. 1,000 up, 1,000 down, something like that. 5 to 10 times.
Tell us, Vanessa, what are your favorite climbing areas? I understand you've been to Kilimanjaro, you mentioned Everest and Elbrus, I think, in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit about that and your favorite areas.
Sure. You know, each continent is so unique, it's hard to pick a favorite because they all offer such different cultures. You know, it really is hard to pick a favorite. It's like trying to pick a favorite child.
Some of them.
You know, you know, I mean, you know, somewhere like Elbrus is so unique because you're touching parts of Russia. You know, you don't normally get to experience Russia. You know, somewhere like Everest, you get to experience Nepal. It's the highest mountain in the world. You know, if you go to Kilimanjaro, you know, you're in Tanzania, but suddenly, you know, there's 6, 7 temperate zones, and here you are on one mountain. And by the way, that mountain is just under 20,000 feet, but you still have to acclimatize, even though you will never change out of your trekking boots. So there's no alpine climbing on Kilimanjaro. Right. But you still, acclimatization rules apply. You can add on things like safari. You know, if you've never been to a safari, you know, that's a wonderful thing for somebody to see. You know, nature in its very, you know, perfect inhabitant.
Absolutely. So many interesting aspects of all of this.
Oh, yeah.
As we've already talked about, you're the fastest woman, I understand, to reach 7 summits. That's a remarkable achievement. Did you ever think you'd get close to something like that?
No, you know, and I'll tell you, it's a record waiting to be broken because it is not, you know, if I look at the men's record, it's much shorter. And the nice thing about having this record is not wanting to set it or not meaning to set it. Right. So all I meant to do was Everest. And then when I got off Everest, I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep going because it's all downhill from here, literally.
Right.
So let's just go. We'll get the rest of the 7 summits. And then when you're in Antarctica, which is a continent, you realize, wait, there's the South Pole. And then if you go to the South Pole, then you realize, wait a minute, I really should go to the North Pole.
Right.
Thank God there's not an East and West unless you're in a Broadway play, and then they make fun of the East and West poles, which don't exist. But yeah, so the world is a fascinating place to explore, and every time you go somewhere, you will learn a lot about yourself. You'll learn a lot about how you approach boundaries and how you deal with fear and stress and accomplishments. And,
right.
But also so much about the local culture, and you would never see these things potentially otherwise.
Any plans of coming back to Pakistan?
So I have not booked a second trip to K2, but it remains unclimbed for me, which of course is always a challenge. But I have made so many...
Is that something you may want to do in the future?
Yes, very much. I have made so many friends here, very, very dear friends, not just the, see you sometime type of friends.
Yeah, not just random acquaintances.
Yeah, and I really, I can't express the hospitality of the people of Pakistan have been amazing, that I would come back here even if it was not to climb a mountain. That's how strongly I feel about the friends that I've made here.
Wonderful work. We have to leave it at that.
Okay.
Vanessa O'Brien, thank you very much for talking to us and coming on our show. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we have time for. Keep watching Swinging Yorker on PTV World. See you next time. Bye-bye.